Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Seeing none, we'll close the citizens forum and move on to the presentation from Southwestern Community Services Bus Service. I asked them to present tonight in preparation for our budget talks that will be happening starting in May. So we have in the past 2 years provided some assistance to the bus transportation system. If you'll recall, the previous entity that was in charge of the bus transportation system dissolved.
Their duties.
Dissolved. And then we were in a heck of a jam because we were trying very hard, working with the state, to find some organization who would be willing to take this on. So we're very grateful to Southwestern Community Services for taking that leap of faith, because this was something that they did not previously do, bus transportation. We heard plenty from the community about the importance of public transportation. And if you have been able to look at the most recently updated master plan, it is part of our master plan, public transportation and intermodal transportation. So I wanted you all, this council, to be aware of all of those pieces, what they're currently doing, because they will be asking for some share to come from the city. The first year was prorated. It was $22,500, I believe. The second year was $30,000. And I don't know what they'll be asking for this year, where they're going to present tonight. But it's important that you hear from them what they've been able to accomplish in the last 2 years, what their vision is for the future, and how they can expand the role of public bus service, so that is more meaningful to the overall economic development of the city.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Councilors, and Manager McNutt for this opportunity to give you a snapshot of where the program is today. I'll give you some highlights, and Terry Page, who's our transit program manager, will give you some of the details of how the program is operating today. Happy to report that Keith Thibault, Southwestern Community Services, and Terry Page.
He gave you mine. He just didn't.
I'm happy to report that last October we completed our first year of the program, and in those early days when I was here in the past, we had said we were going to give it 6 months and see how it went. Well, that first 6 months went fine for the most part. There was some growing pains and we learned a lot. But last October we had a nice celebration on the day, on the birthday of the program, if you will. Terry and her folks organized a sort of a fun day. A lot of our stops took part in the ceremonies. There were prizes given out and riders rode free, and it was truly a celebration of not only the bus service being in existence, but our ability to have operated and administered the bus service for a full year. So it was a pretty good moment for us. Then shortly thereafter, in December, we completed our first full calendar year of operating the program. And in taking a look back between then and now, the program is running in the black. We're in the process of rebranding the program. Before I guess it was known as CATS, and we are in a rebranding effort right now that will roll out later this year with a new name, a new logo, and picking up its own new brand. So we've been working really hard on trying to give it its a proper personification, if you will, or a good way to refer the program to. We are working actively with our local regional coordinating council, which is sort of the advisory body to the program, and in turn they're working closely with the state coordinating council to make sure that we're operating the program as DOT wants us to. DOT has been a very good partner since the very early days. We continue to have a bi-weekly telephone conference call. Bi-monthly?
Yeah.
Oh, no wonder I've been on, I've been there all by myself a couple times on the phone. But what started out as bi-weekly, but they've been actively involved in advising us. They were there from the beginning, and they've been a great partner to work with. We've been working very closely with the Sullivan County Economic Profile Group, broad group of stakeholders that have met a half a dozen times or so, that are looking to enhance the economic profile, the economic development profile, and the economic health of all of Sullivan County. They see, as your master plan also states, that public transportation is an important driver of economic development in the region, and that group has sort of been looking to us to try to link up the Upper Valley down here. So there have been among many other things they're looking to do, but that's one of them. And Terry has dusted off a plan that had been made
5 years ago.
5 years ago, and we are actively intending to link up on a daily basis, 2 runs a day, I believe, from Claremont up to the Upper Valley, Lebanon area, dedicated route, and the folks from the the stakeholder group, the economic profile group, thinks that's going to work 2 ways. One, it'll allow folks from this region to access the job shed, if you will, the market up that way, and then conversely, the plan would be to try to bring people home to Sullivan County that work up in that region right now. So there's intended to be a dual benefit to both sections, and I think it's totally appropriate. I wasn't sure a year ago that we'd be in a place where we could consider expansion, but we are. We're also looking at using outside consultants, looking to make sure our routes are the most efficient they can be, that we're collecting as many people in the best places as can be. We're looking to our stops to support us. One of our stops, very early on, there's a group which you may be aware of that I wasn't, called Preservation of Affordable Housing, POA. They are the management group for Sugar River Mills, and they provided a donation to us, a cash donation of $2,500 last year. They've done it again this year. There are others, Newport Service Organization, the Claremont Congress of Senior Citizens, a couple of foundations, New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, have all contributed and invested in the program in the past year, and now have made a second contribution. So we're pleased with that. The program, as we explained last year, and you have budgets that were sent to you, the program runs off a combination of federal funding, obviously fares and revenue driven by the buses themselves, but also it takes a considerable amount of local match to access the federal funding, and that's where we're trying to make sure that we reach out. And the communities have been great. The county continues to support us at a level of $50,000. That's in their budget. We have a similar presentation set in April, in a couple of weeks. And both Charlestown and Newport continue to support the program. Newport doubled its investment last year, and they're staying at that level. And Charlestown has remained steady at $14,500 for the program. So, so the community, both from a municipal and a philanthropic, if you will, basis, have supported the program. We have tried very hard to make the program understood for what it is. It's not only transporting an older person to a medical appointment, but it also brings people to jobs. It enhances the commerce. It brings people to businesses to not only shop but work. We've been reporting out to our funders where we've been on an ongoing basis. Quarterly reports are generated. The program went through an audit, if you will, or a monitoring this year.
Many of them.
and thanks to Terry and her crew, they've done a great job. We're fully staffed. We have a full complement of drivers, and I think, as Terry will tell you a little bit about our volunteer driver program, we are always looking for volunteer drivers. It's a program that it fills a niche. It goes where the buses don't. It provides transportation for people who really need it. It's not a bad way for folks who have the time and the automobile to augment their income. Mileage is reimbursed, and it's a program that I think is one that does a lot of really good things. And that's a little pitch out there for anybody who might know someone who's interested in doing a little bit of volunteer driving. But I'll let Terry take over and give you some of the nuts and bolts and details of where we are. We're real pleased with that part of it. So,
Yeah, thank you, Keith.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you again, everybody. Appreciate it. Appreciate you having me here and supporting the system. It's been an amazing growth period. I have to keep reminding myself, wow, it actually has been 2 years. Like everything's happened so quickly. It seems weird that we're here already for 2 years. As Keith mentioned, we have quite a broad offering now in terms of services that we can already provide, and we're looking to see if we can expand that a little bit and do a little bit more. That's all contingent, of course, on being able to have the funds available to do that. If any of you guys, I'm sure all of you probably follow federal funding issues right now. FDA, the Federal Transit Association, has been flat funded for as long as I've been in the business. So there's been no more, state funding available for transit or federal funding available for public transit. It's just been flatlined for a really long time. I'm hearing there is a bill that went through just this week that might give us a little bit of an increase, which would be really cool. But to have any sort of expansion, we're going to have to rely on other types of funding because we're fully drawing down what we have available from the state. So to be able to do the expansion on the 120 corridor and to be able to do some of the other work that we want to do, we've got to be able to rely on our business partners and our community partners to bring those funds in to make it happen. The kind of cool thing about that is you can be a little bit more creative too, because we're not tied to the federal requirements for some of those services. So that's where I get kind of really excited about what we could do and where we could go with this. So we're working diligently with some of our partners. The economic profiling project has been a great platform for us to try to see who's interested and who might be willing to come to the table to assist us with something like this. And Keith particularly is constantly knocking on doors. Hey, we're here. Here's what we want to do. How can you help us? We're working with trying to do some more local advertising on the buses. So if you know of somebody who might be interested in having a sign on the bus or doing an actual wrap on the bus, that would be fabulous. We get some pretty good income from that, and we'd like to get a little bit more in that area. We have a few new buses, so it's nice to have shiny new buses out there with some nice advertising on them for folks to see around town. And we're also looking at making sure that, as Keith mentioned, we're as efficient as possible with the funds that we have. So we're looking at how are the routes running, what are they doing, what can we change that would make it more efficient, how can we make better connections, all of that. Also, the regional piece that Keith mentioned, the Regional Coordinating Council, works closely with other regional coordinating councils. So I actually sit on 2 of them right now. I'm working down in the Monadnock area in Keene on their Regional Coordinating Council and the one here in Sullivan County. And we'd like to connect them. Right now there's a bus that's funded through funding that's specific to seniors and people with disabilities that comes from Keene all the way up to Lebanon and back once a week. Why can't we do something about that? And why can't we hook up with that and maybe expand that a little bit and see what we can do with making a better connection in that direction as well? Keith mentioned that we've been doing some compliance stuff. New kid on the block. They like to make sure that we're actually doing what we're saying we're going to be doing. So I've had a FDA audit come in back in October. Then I had the New Hampshire Department of Transportation audit come in. And then I had a drug and alcohol audit come in, and we were also a broker for Medicaid, CTS brokered rides. Folks who have Medicaid insurance can get transportation to medical appointments, and we're one of the brokers for them.
Yes.
And we had a compliance review for them too. So I've checked them all off now, so hopefully I get a little bit of a breathing space, but we passed successfully. Everybody was happy, so that's a really good thing.
Excellent.
Yeah. Keith mentioned the fact that we are more and more, which I'm really happy about, linking folks to other services beyond just medical services, which is a lot of what people think public transit might be for, is just to get people to medical appointments or for folks who can't drive. We have growing numbers every month. I see more of folks who are using our buses to get to work between the 3 communities. We have folks who sit out here at the Opera House Square every morning for the Newport bus at 6:45, to go into Newport to get to a job, and then they come back at the last bus of the day at 3:30. You know, we have, I think, 3 or 4 now that do that every day, which is pretty impressive. We just started with a couple of folks coming from here in Claremont down to River Road, down to the industrial park down on River Road, to get them down to a couple shift jobs they have down there during the midday portion of the day, which is really cool. We have folks that we take down to Washington Street on a regular basis to jobs down through the businesses down on Washington Street. So that service is happening. It's already there. People are already using it to get to jobs, to be able to support their families and be part of the community. So I think, we also had, in addition to like fun things, because I like fun things too, we had our celebration, which was awesome. We called it Passport to Freedom. So all of the riders had a little passport that we made up that had all the business names on it, and the person who got the most stamps from the most businesses got a big basket of goodies. And it was really fun. People really enjoyed it. The businesses were very much engaged, and it was just a really fun celebration to be able to try to combine the two communities. And we also had a light tour this year, which was really fun. We took folks who wanted to sign up, had some drivers volunteer to run the buses around for a couple nights during the Christmas light shows, and we had folks come in from Claremont, from Charlestown into Claremont. We had folks come from Newport into Claremont. We had a large group of folks who rode from Claremont just to go see the lights, and that was really fun for everybody. So I think that's pretty much it.
Just a couple of numbers, not that we're going to diving into the report that you have, but in just the last quarter of 2017, last 3 months of 2017, over 5,500 rides were given on the bus. 3,100 of those were in the Claremont run, the AM run and the PM run. The AM run ran about 1,800, and it was almost 1,400 on the afternoon run. So that's a lot of people. Lots of commerce, lots of folks that are depending on this program on a daily basis. So that's just in one quarter. So you can just kind of see the numbers that were out there. I know there have been times when the Claremont routes, those buses are full. Yeah, and that's a reality.
Today, actually, I had to send a separate bus out to get somebody who was using a mobility device because we already had 2 on, couldn't fit them, so I sent a separate bus out to pick up this third person to get them down to Washington Street earlier today. So
those numbers again? 5870 riders, and how many passengers from Claremont?
Do you have that? Do you have a breakdown?
Yeah, it's right here. If you look at the total, there's Charlestown. Claremont total is right here. That's the total for Claremont. So you have
3,200
Yep.
and 12.
Thank you.
It's a little bit further down. Thank you. We're pleased to be running the program. It's been very positive. I think it's been good for our organization. Largely due to this program, we recently were the recipient of the Greater Claremont Chamber of Commerce's Nonprofit of the Year Award, which we were incredibly humbled to get that. But I think it was, in a lot of ways, a testament to the effort we've put in to try to make this this program work, make sure it's understood. We're trying to be very transparent. Why we're again sharing the budget. We did lose, as of the end of this week, you'll notice the buses that have been running around with the U.S. Cellular wrap. U.S. Cellular notified us late last year that they're going to end that agreement, that contract. So we are going to take a hit on the revenue side for a while, but we're also going to use it as an opportunity to reach out to local businesses about doing that kind of advertising. And or smaller. Doesn't have to be a bus wrap, doesn't have to be a full bus wrap. There's many ways we can advertise on those buses. So
what is the pricing of that advertising?
we were able to, well, I know from totally on an annual basis, we were generating $18,000 in income on an annual basis.
From the US Cellular.
Just from U.S.
Like
Cellular.
Ryan's Widget Factory wanted
Yeah.
to advertise.
You have a sense?
I'm actually working right now with a couple of different providers, the paint and prints business down in Newport, and there's one here in Claremont. I'm sorry, I'm not going to remember it now, but they're giving me quotes on what it would cost to do up signage, just regular signs that could go onto the bus either inside or outside, and I'm anticipating, poster size signs that will be seen well but not take up a whole lot of room. And then I'll be able to give a catalog of pricing to somebody to say, do you want to do a sign? Do you want to do a wrap? Paint and Print can actually do what's called a mini wrap, which is just the bottom part of the bus so that the windows don't get covered. It's much more affordable for somebody who doesn't have a big budget for advertising, but it can be pretty impactful. And we can also do just back wraps, which is just the back door, and those would be a little bit smaller in price as well. So the big full wraps they're expensive to produce and they're expensive to put on, so we're kind of looking at alternatives that might work for folks who don't have that big of a budget.
But we're talking in the hundreds of dollars a month range probably for many of this type of advertising.
Yep.
And we're putting on, tens of thousands of miles, so lots of eyeballs are getting on those. So I think it's probably pretty effective advertising. And as soon as your company's up and running, Ryan, we'll come talk to you.
We'll come talk to you, that's right. Any questions from you guys?
Yeah, anybody?
No,
Will we?
I-
it's very impressive.
Counselor Pope?
Do you guys still run a bus to the park and ride over in Escutney?
We do not. No. Did they at one point?
They did, yes.
Oh, I remember hearing about that.
645 and 445.
Yeah, they got a special grant. It was a commuter grant that they got to run that for, I think they did it for like 6 months or a year maybe to see if it was going to be
About a year,
productive. Yeah. I do remember hearing about that, but we don't do it at this point, and I,
Hasn't been a call.
no, we haven't. That's actually kind of the first time I've heard somebody bring it up.
It used to
So
be a pretty full bus.
to go out there, really?
Used to take my wife to the bus station, and that used to drop off several people. I think
Oh.
it was about the 645, so they were jumping around on the 650 bus or the 7 o'clock bus.
We'll look into that.
Yeah,
I
we'll have
mean,
to take a look
Park and
at it.
rides, it's a good concept, and
Yep.
it's good.
Yeah, and then they were bringing them home.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for the lead. I appreciate that.
Good. Are there any other questions?
Just a request.
Yes.
Can this be put up on the website so people know what we're referring to, what you're talking about? Is this the Southwestern Community
The
Service?
report?
The report? Yeah, we could put it up on the website.
I mean,
Sure.
we're referring to it, and I don't think people in the public know what we're referring to.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Mhm.
You
All
have it
right.
electronically, so,
Yep.
yep, that's fine with us. We'll consider it advertising.
Sure, sure.
So,
In a couple of weeks, I'll actually have the March report, but obviously March isn't over yet, so I don't have the quarter for March yet, so.
One more question.
Yep.
So when you do things like the holiday light ride, for example, how do you advertise those? Because I hadn't heard anything about that.
Yeah.
It was kind of we did it very quickly this year, so I didn't honestly do a whole lot of advertising. I contacted all of the major housing developments around in both Claremont, Newport, and Charlestown. I put it up in all the libraries in all 3 communities, and we contacted the Claremont
Congress
of Senior Citizens, and I contacted, there were a couple of other groups that I knew that were big community groups that we got it out to. But I didn't do a whole lot of like putting it in the paper or anything like that, because I just honestly didn't have time. We put it together like 2 weeks before we actually ran it, so.
I remember seeing the buses, not this year, but in the past, go by some of the lit up areas.
Yep.
They're pretty full there too.
Yeah, we had a great turnout even for the little amount of advertising that we did. People really enjoyed it, so,
Business parties, stuff like that.
yeah.
Could you speak a little bit to your ability to be flexible to some degree to the community's needs with regard to route deviation?
So the routes as they are right now are set up so that we have a few set time stops along each of the routes. So Opera House Square is a time stop, Rite Aid is a time stop. We have 3 or 4 of the businesses downtown that are not downtown, Washington Street, that are time stopped. And then we have the hospital that's a time stop. So we try to keep to that schedule so that everybody knows when the bus is going to be and the circuit that it's in. And then from that route, we can deviate up to a quarter of a mile between those stops to pick up anybody who calls the day before to be able to book a ride. So if somebody, can't get to Opera House Square, needs to go down to Washington Street, if they're within a quarter of a mile of the route that we take, then we can deviate off that, pick them up at their home or business or wherever it is, and take them where they want to go. But we do like to have at least the day before notice so that we can get it into the manifest and get things scheduled, and we make sure the buses are going to run on time, because nobody wants to have buses that are always late, so.
And for more, you know, for needs that go beyond that, that's really what the volunteer driver program is set up to do.
Yeah.
To be able to do that kind of transportation if it's not on the bus route or they live, you know, further out than the bus can deviate. Sort of an oxymoron. We have a fixed deviated route, but that's what it is. But the volunteer driver program is where we can pick up some of the slack if that doesn't fit.
And I have a dual purpose for wanting the connection between here and Lebanon. Literally 85% of the rides that we provide through the volunteer driver program are from Claremont, Newport, Charlestown to Lebanon.
Yeah,
So,
it's a
you know, that takes
destination.
up a lot of
Right.
manpower and a lot of resources that if we had a bus that was going, we could put 20 people on the bus and get them up to Lebanon. And if we were running it 3 times a day, that would work for dialysis. It would work, you know, we have some folks who are trying to get up there 7 days a week to get treatment. And that takes its toll on a volunteer driver program, so.
So come talk to us if someone's willing to help out on the
Right.
driving part of that.
Yeah.
Counselor Kier?
So it's obvious that there's a need for that travel from here to Lebanon. What do you project as a possible start date or hopeful start date for that if you get the correct funding?
I'm hesitant to do that because
Understandable.
yeah, I think, I mean, to be honest, I have a vehicle, I can probably find a driver, we could probably make it happen really quickly, just it would be truly securing the full amount of funding that we need to make sure, because I don't want to start something and then 6 months say, oh, forget it, we're out of money, and disappoint everybody who's now relying on that for 6 months. I want to make sure that it's going to be sustainable going forward, so we have a planning process that's in place right now. Just got approval from a state grant that we applied for to do a short-term transit plan for ourselves specifically. And as part of that, looking at what the route structures are, what are some of the feasibility options for expansion and what that would look like, and the costs involved, so we have a true cost set for what that's going to take so that we can make sure it's going to be sustainable going forward.
Awesome, thank you.
Anybody else? Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
for
Thank
you
everything
for
that
Again,
you're
we
doing.
very
taking
much
us-
appreciate all your support.
Absolutely.